I'm just wondering, I mean, I kind of expected you to start with the statement, so I'll just ask kind of a blanket question. Can you kind of go through a little bit pick by pick and tell us what went into each one?
Les, Sean here?
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead. Start with Bobby Brown.
Big Bobby.
Go through all these gauntlet of 7 picks in one day.
We got 7. You know what? Bobby's large human being, very athletic, very strong. So definitely felt like worthy of picking there at the start of the 4th round, you know, based on that skill set. Rochelle's another kid from a small school, but very athletic, long corner, a lot of upside there. Jacob Harris, interestingly, all 3 of those guys had some unbelievable type pro days. Jacob Harris, really played wide receiver at Central Florida, was probably our number 1 ranked special teamer in terms of coverage. But he's a fast guy that we project could go to tight end and just an interesting weapon based on the special teams and things like that. Big Ernest Brown, a typical Northwestern player. He's tall, long, heavy, just an instinctive football player. Jake Funk, another guy that we had highly rated as a coverage player for special teams. He can return, and so that's a good way. And then Big Ben, and I'm not sure. Sean, how do we pronounce? I've been calling him Skoronovic forever, but that's probably a butcher of his name. But
yes, Skronek. But
Skronek.
We'll let Ben appropriately correct us, just like John Wolford.
So. Big Ben, just a really fun player to watch. He's a genre we don't have at receiver. Tall, big, long arms, wide wingspan, can go up and get rebounds. Fun player to watch blocking, so you could project him being basically, one of our better blockers on our team, and special teams projected. And then the last player, Mr. Chris Garrett, a small school kid who basically destroyed that league. But fun player to watch, had some initial juice that really gave him an edge in that league. And, the sacks in the amount of games speak for themselves. So that's probably a quick rundown of the 7.
Thanks, Les. And then just Sean, I know going into the draft, you said that you guys really didn't need to look for anybody to come in and start right away. But just with who you were able to get, do you feel like you really kind of rounded out the needs that you had?
Yeah, I do. I think the biggest thing, Lindsay, when you hear Les go through those 7 picks today, in addition to the 2 from yesterday, all of these guys provide tremendous value. They all love football, and their skill sets are different, but I think they really fill out the rooms that they're going into. You look at each of them, and there's a vision that we have for them and how they fit and how they provide value for our football team. And that might be offensively, defensively. There's a couple guys that we felt like their value to our special teams unit was a really big asset that they can, immediately boost the production of that group, not, really just in the kicking game in general, not exclusive to our coverage units or our return units, but really, being those core players. And so that was an important element for us to be able to really focus on and feel really good. And then we're going to add some really good players in college free agency as well.
Claudia.
Sean, you had mentioned you didn't have any holes to fill with this draft, but what kind of challenges did you have as this draft took place?
Yeah, when I say no holes to fill, I think it's a compliment to the guys we have in-house and the roster that's been built here. But all of these guys provide value and depth. And unfortunately, injuries is a part of our game, and we hope to stay as healthy as possible. But these guys will do an excellent job in each of their rooms that they're going to step into. What's unique about it is just, with COVID over the last year, some guys not playing this past year. I think the biggest change that you could really feel was the medicals, just getting some of that information a little bit later than you're accustomed to. But I thought Les and his group and Reggie and our doctors did a phenomenal job, and feel really good about another smooth process. And, we're kind of in the middle of finishing up the college free agency as we speak right now. But I think it's been a really good weekend, and I know we got better as a football team without a doubt.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rhea. For either one of you guys, this is such an enthusiastic group of guys that we have talked to in the last 2 days, as I'm sure you both know. What is it that you're hoping to hear when you speak to them? And I know when you see them in person, it'll be different, but what is that one thing that you're hoping to hear on the phone in addition to their physical talents?
Go ahead, Les.
Yeah, Maria, it's pretty neat because y'all get to talk, you do the Zooms, and I know our website or what have you spits it out, and through the draft, getting texts just from friends of mine or what have you about, hey man, this guy loved his interview, things like that. So y'all have got to get a feel for that I haven't, but the text I got, I'm like, okay, that's seems like pretty good kids. But I do know this, it's interesting, right, when you vet them and you know that they're passionate about ball, and then you're able to make the call and welcome them to the Rams and feel that enthusiasm. It jacks me up, you know what I mean, in terms of I can't imagine, right? You dream, you're probably many nights dreaming about getting drafted, and all of a sudden today or yesterday, your dream comes true.
Yeah, I felt the same way as you, Maria. I think this group, especially when you look at the 9 guys, there was a real genuine excitement. I think there's a consistent passion for the game of football. These guys love what they're doing, and that ends up being contagious. You know, there's a genuine enthusiasm that all those guys had that can't help but get you excited as well. And those are the types of people that we want to bring into our building, and we're really excited to add those 9 players.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Jordan?
Hey, Sean, I might be kind of jacked to see Ben line up at fullback every once in a while, if that's maybe in the plans for him.
You know, Ben has probably been in a 3-point stance more than Harris has. So I saw him in the goal line packages. He's got a toughness. He's got a good feel to his game where he's got some versatility. So you never know. You know, teams might have to treat him like a tight end receiver, how we utilize him, but he's not afraid to do the dirty work. And, you know, he's got a really good resume, good body of work, and they've done a great job at Notre Dame. You know, there's a lot of similarities, you know, with what Coach Reese and Coach Kelly have done schematically. There'll be a lot of comfortable things that will feel familiar to him with what we'll ask of him, but excited to add Ben and really Harris to the mix, you know, as some skill players on the perimeter for us, or as, you know, kind of some different guys that can create different numbers in the blocking surfaces as well.
And then one more question from me for both of you guys, if you wouldn't mind. Obviously, a lot was made of the talent and depth of this group of offensive linemen, both at tackle and interior center. What was the reason for not going toward those positions? And I know you guys have said you're okay with who's on your roster, and I hear that. But in terms of drafting for the future in that regard, after not really picking from the pool last year either.
You want to go, Sean?
Yeah, I think, you know, what I would say, Jordan, is what I think was an incredible blessing for our team a couple of years ago that was really tough to go through is you got a lot of young players, some experience, and you don't want to be naive to the fact that, hey, you don't want to just look at the upcoming season, but you want to have, you know, a long-term perspective as well. But the way that the thing shook out, you know, we were able to really get players off the board that we all really had a good feel and a like for. And then there's a lot of depth, you know, with the 11 players that we had in that offensive line room going into to today, you know, all of them have played meaningful games. They're guys that we project as real NFL guys. Typically you want to have 15 if you're going to go on your 90-man roster, but I think it is a reflection of the confidence of the group that we do have in place. And just kind of how things shook out. You know, there were some different guys that were potentially going to be people that we were maybe going to select, but I think it worked out exactly how we had hoped. And I think it's a reflection of the confidence that we do have in the group that's played a lot of football. And I know Kevin Carberry is going to do a great job leading that unit.
And Les, if you wouldn't mind.
You know, I would second Sean on that. I think we've been saying it a good bit, right? And Sean mentioned it. I mean, we've got 11 guys who've played games that we've won. That's probably as deep a group that's played as I've ever been a part of. So give those guys credit, and they've done a heck of a job. And as Sean said, unfortunate at times. We've had a lot of guys get a chance to play, and they've grown together and they're gelling together. So, and like Sean said, in the draft, you know, there's times you're looking at OL, maybe, you know, if you're 15 spots away, but someone takes one. So that's just how the draft goes. But we did know this going into, you know, this draft, right? If we did, like you mentioned, Jordan, if we did take an OL, it would really be, I would say maybe a red shirt year. It'd be hard for an offensive lineman to be one of our 8, you know, no matter how good you were coming in this group. But
Chandler Brewer was our draft pick this year, opting back in, guy that we have a lot of, you know, excitement about that can play inside and outside. Chandler Brewer was the guy we added to the mix that wasn't with us last year. There you go.
And Jordan, this isn't official yet, but I know we got a handshake agreement with a kid from Iowa, Alaric Jackson, who very talented kid. And because of the Big Ten, didn't have as good a year, a little bit probably similar to, you know, David Edwards type, so didn't have as good a year as the year before, and he fell out of the draft. And he was a kid that was down at the Senior Bowl, but he's definitely got make a team and contribute talent. So we'll see if we can officialize that and go to work.
Thanks, guys.
Helping him.
Eric.
Gary,
2 questions for.
Oh, my bad, Eric. Go ahead.
I thought it was
okay.
Eric.
I didn't hear. Is it Gary or Eric? Which one?
Yeah, Eric, you go ahead. Gary, you're after Eric. Eric Williams.
Thank you. Sean, 2 questions for you. First of all, with what you guys did in the draft and free agency, obviously adding Deshaun and Matthew Stafford, do you feel like you can be more explosive offensively with those added elements along with what you already have on the roster? And then secondly, you draft 9 kids. The roster is already pretty talented. What's the recruiting pitch for these college free agents when you look at the roster? It might be hard for them to find a place to stick.
Yeah, I think, you know, first of all, we definitely expect to be more explosive. And I think, you know, like anything else, you know, you got to give guys an opportunity to create big plays in a variety of ways. And there's a big responsibility that I know I feel and our coaches feel to put our players in the positions to be able to make those plays. There was definitely an intentional approach and process to being able to add, you know, a quarterback of Matthew Stafford's caliber and then surround him with the right pieces, guys that we've already had in place, and then guys that we've added, whether that be, you know, Deshaun or the players that we drafted, and then the guys that we have, you know, in-house. But, you know, we have a lot of expectations and things that we expect to accomplish, but you got to do it. And so as far as for the recruiting pitch, if you got some suggestions for some of these skilled guys, I'd love to hear it, because most of these guys are probably the same thing you are. So I think we feel really good about the depth, but there are some spots when you look at, you know, offensive linemen, guys that we feel really good about in place, but then being able to add an Alaric Jackson, like Les mentioned, you know, those are the things that we're looking to try to create the most competitive roster to really, you know, solidify our football team in all 3 phases. But it's something that we definitely expect to be more explosive, and you know, everybody's got a hand in that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gary Klein.
Thanks, Artis. Les, first of all, how are you feeling? Feeling better? Feeling all right?
Let me go ahead. You know what, Gary, I'll be honest, right? This is the worst I've felt talking with y'all, and right before I got on, I remembered I missed one of my Advil dosages, I guess because we kept trading back and have a lot of picks. So
you are disciplined as hell with those Advils. I'd be popping those things like candy, man.
I set my alarm on a 4-hour schedule. So but hopefully it kicks in, but it's interesting. I talked with a agent, not going to give his name just because I'm not sure he wants to, but he sounded really bad. And, you know, it was about one of his players for CFA, and he said he was dealing with COVID. So what I do know is I certainly am not feeling as bad as he was, but I mean, he sounded bad. So fortunate there. So, and I'm not sure, did you have another part of the question?
Yeah. I mean, did you guys go into the draft with a plan to, you know, add depth on the defensive line? Was that kind of or is that just how it fell, or did you guys go in with that as one of your goals?
You know what, I think the way we did it, and like as Sean had alluded to, we didn't have to have really any position. At least that's subjectively how we felt. Y'all might feel differently about the offensive line, but we felt that way. So what we tried to do is I call it handicap how the draft might fall, especially with 57 in those third round picks and kind of early fourth. And so with what we did do is come up with front seven, I call it, and that could be an OLB, it could be IDL. It just depended on how the draft was going to fall. But we felt like we could definitely, you can always take talented front seven guys, and I probably didn't mention with Ernest Brown. You know, he's someone that can add versatility of maybe playing inside and also outside a little bit like Morgan Fox at times. So, you know, that versatility kind of allowed for that. So, but that's, you know, we would have taken at most positions a quality player if they fail, you know, and that's kind of what we tried to do.
Kevin.
Thanks. Sean, building on Eric's question a little bit, you know, 3 years ago, the Rams had one of the top passing attacks in the league. After the quarterback trade, after getting Deshaun Jackson, after what you got in the draft, do you feel like you now have the talent for the passing game to get back to that top level?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's about winning and losing. And whatever we feel like is the best way to do that, Kevin, putting all three phases together, winning as a team is the most important thing to me. And, you know, what we've seen over the last 4 years is there's been different kind of, you know, philosophies that we put together based on how our team, you know, unfolds. But there's no doubt about it. You know, a guy that's heavily involved in the offense like myself and our coaches, you know, you feel a huge responsibility to be a big part of why we're winning those games. And to say that we don't have expectations and that we need to be better offensively, we do. And for us to do and accomplish the things that you know, we all have in mind is definitely something that's a huge point of emphasis, but not at the expense of minimizing the importance of defense in the kicking game as well. So to say that we have any excuses for not being productive, no, we got great players, feel really confident in our coaches. There's no reason that we don't have very realistic expectations about being a lot better, but saying it doesn't do anything. We got to be where our feet are planted, do it one day at a time. But the answer is yes, I expect us to be much better, and I expect us to be one of the better ones in the league.
I'm sure some people are surprised you didn't get a center. What is Brian Allen's health situation now?
He feels good. He feels good. You know, we've got a lot of guys that have been trained to play the center position as well, Kevin. Brian Allen has started and played really productive football for us when he's been healthy. Coleman Shelton is a guy that's done a lot of good things. And then we've got starting caliber guards, you know, that definitely have the capability to do it. You know, Austin Corbett is a guy that started at the left guard, the right guard. I have no doubt that if he tried his hand at center, that he could really excel there as well. So there's a lot of guys, you know, when you look at the 11 offensive linemen, 10 of those 11 have played meaningful snaps in real games. Tremaine Ankrum, a guy that we invested in last year, who I think has a lot of upside, didn't play last year, but is somebody that we feel good about for the future. And, you know, I think it's a really competitive group. And so really looking forward to watching Coach Carberry get his hands on these guys and hopefully be able to work with them sooner than later.
And then one more for Les. You added 3 picks with trades as the draft went on. Was that the plan? And was the reason, you know, going in with the idea that you didn't have, you know, any big positions to fill, but maybe a lot of depth at a lot of positions to fill?
Hey, I know a lot of times with where we were sitting in the draft, there was moments where, okay, this is probably a good spot to trade back and recoup some picks. So that's always an option unless there's somebody that you really, really want at that pick. So, and there was a couple of times we thought about actually moving up and even attempted to, and wasn't able to do it. So it kind of works both ways. But what we did know is we had identified some guys with our personnel staff and Joe DeCamillis, our new special teams coach, the guys that could come in and hey, like a Jacob Harris, like a Mr. Funk and some of those guys and Big Ben and things like that could help on teams too. So because get a jersey on game day, and if you're not starting, right, it'd be really, really good if you can help us cover kicks and punts and things like that. So we knew that there would be some of those guys in the draft, and hey, having as many picks as possible to allow us to pick some of those guys off along the way.
Thank you.
And we'll wrap this up with Jordan.
Hey guys, just I'm not sure if this can quickly be answered, but kind of sensed a pattern as you guys were picking. Lots of guys with really high athletic profiles, but like pretty raw in some ways as well, or that's what it seems at first glance. What's the matching of some of those things, some of those traits to the potential, and then in what ways do you lean on the coaching staff in that regard once they get into your building?
I'll answer, then I'll let Sean go. I mean, the key is hey, what role can they play? So let's take Jacob Harris, right? Major athletic profile. I mean, he's a freak of nature. But what we do know is, and there's no projection, is watching him cover kicks blocked. I think even the pundits had him as the #1 special teams player in the draft, right? So that's not a projection. That's right there on paper. So now it's Sean and Coach Phillips, okay, as we groom him to be a tight end. And there's some other things that's not necessarily a projection with him, right? Going vertical and tracking the ball over his head and outrunning people. That's kind of what he did. And interestingly with I think with the Arkansas Central corner, Robert, probably because he's from Arkansas Central, you consider him raw, but very, very athletic human being that what he can do, that's not a projection, is from once he breaks on a ball, he can break and he gets to the receiver the ball really, really quick. That's not a projection. That's mom, dad, God gave him some clothes and him able to flip those hips and do that. So you're always looking, hey, what's your projection? So with Robert, it's okay if he's our 4th corner this year. Coach Morris was jacked to get a hold of him. Coach E, those guys to develop him, but Coach DeCamillis was also thumbs up on him as well. Because if you're a 4th corner, what's not a projection is him going down and maybe being a gunner and things like that. So I think as Sean and I always talk with these players, what is the role? What's their chance of getting a jersey on game day and why?
Yeah, a lot of the same, Jordan. I think Les and his group, and then really when you look at Jake, Ryan, Sarah, they do an excellent job of really providing some tangible evidence specific to the athletic measurables. And then you're saying, all right, do you see enough traits and characteristics on tape, even if they might be a little bit green, that we feel like we can, help them develop and reach their highest potential? And there was a handful of guys today in particular that really fit into that mold, if you will. And very excited to be able to work with these guys. But I think it was really a true representation of the great collaboration that exists between, our coaches and Les and his group, and how we can figure it out to create the most competitive roster and add guys that bring value to our team in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, our nerds, as we call them, they were jacked about those first 3. Now they have their own ratings on analyzing those pro days, and those 3 were freaks in nature. So they were jacked about that. And then you come back with a good old Ernest Brown, who's the opposite, right? So good. But, in good old Northwestern fashion, they just play really good defense there. They know how to play football, some of that central nervous stuff. So, maybe, throw you for a loop there. But, and I don't know if we're about to close. Sean mentioned it with Jake, Ron, Sarah, the nerds. Heck, our area scouts starting this time last year, for this class, our senior level group, our coaching staff, athletic performance staff, artists, his staff, for getting these awesome Zoom calls set up for the, players, everybody to say they're pretty cool, and our IT staff for taking the show on the road and adjusting. I mean, they got to give those guys and gals, women, a lot of credit, because a lot of hard work goes into basically, as Sean always says, you mean to tell me we do all that work and we end up with about 7 to 9 players? So, but basically everybody that got drafted, we did a lot of work on. Can't draft them all, but we end up with our 9. But a lot of people that aren't on this call deserve a lot of, let's call it, credit for helping us get to where we are now.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, guys.